Hello and welcome to another episode of the CollabTalk podcast, where we discuss the convergence of technology, business productivity, and collaboration culture. My guest today is longtime friend Justin Slagle. In fact, I was trying to figure out at what point would we meet, but we may get into that.
Yeah.
Justin is the CEO of the Partner Masters, who are focused on optimizing Microsoft partnerships, driving profitability, and unlocking new revenue sources, which is perfect. Today, we're talking about mastering the complexities of the partner ecosystem. So welcome, Justin.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Christian. Looking forward to doing this. I know you've had a podcast for quite a while, and
yeah, it's been around for a while. It's growing. It's exciting to see the numbers go up, and always great. More people watching than listening to audio only. So hey, the kids are crazy this day. They like that YouTube thing.
Yeah, I was telling my son's 5. I was telling him that it's going to be on YouTube, and he's like, "You're going to be on YouTube?" And so he came in here. He was trying to sneak in the back because he really wanted to pop in. So if you see him pop up, that's what's happening.
Oh, no problem. He could sit down at the piano back there and play. Everybody has that similar piano that I just kind of across that. Yeah. Now, hey, so Justin, why don't you give us more of a bio? So from the partner perspective, especially what you've been doing the last few years, and then what your company focuses on.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So Justin Slagle, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Partner Masters, and as you mentioned, like we're a firm who specializes in Microsoft partners, helping get the most out of the Microsoft partnership. My background is coming up here on 20 years in the Microsoft ecosystem. I started with a Microsoft training company. Some people may know Quick Start, but started at Quick Start where we were doing training for. Really, we made our name in SharePoint and doing some SharePoint training, SQL training, Windows training, and so forth. We sold that business. I joined the ownership team, and then we sold the business in 2012. And at that time, I joined into Microsoft. And at Microsoft, I was in the partner side of the organization for the entire time. So I started with Cindy Bates. If everybody remembers Cindy Bates in the SMB days. Mm-hmm. I was in her org covering the Western U.S. And then we went to one commercial partner, and I covered some larger partners as we went and said, hey, you don't cover the 4,000 partners here in the West anymore. Now you just cover these 40 partners. And then we became GPS, and then it went down from 40 to 25 to 7 to 3 to 2 to 1 as the partners got bigger and bigger. But there was a huge opportunity that we saw. Matt Sosman is my business partner, and we saw this massive opportunity. We can go into details on what we saw and kind of the writing on the wall of why we decided to start this business, which is 2 years. So when everybody sees this, it'll be like 2 years and 2 weeks. So pretty fresh and new, but some really exciting things going on.
That's very cool. Now, and I think we met when Jeff Shuey and I had relaunched or started the Seattle chapter of the IAMCP. For folks that don't know, it's the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners. And I was the president of that for 3.5 years. I can't remember, like, were you president, or you were in leadership down in the LA chapter? Were you at that time?
I founded the LA, so we called it SoCal chapter in 2009. So we had our 10-year anniversary party in 2019. Now it's 15, coming up on 15. We were just talking about it. Past presidents were just talking about it. Yeah. But yeah, I think we may have even met before then, Christian, because there were some things I was doing at Quick Start, and we were doing some SharePoint conferences.
I remember going to a bunch of Quick Start stuff too. I don't remember who I met. I mean, that was a long time. So that was probably like 2008, 2009. Because I think I met because I did some stuff in my role while at Microsoft. I think in like 2000, may have been even 2007.
Yep.
With you guys, but
2008. There's a lot of stuff going on. And then we were starting up the SharePoint user groups, and Caruana was part of the LA SharePoint user group. So she and I were, kind of founding that. We started Orange County SharePoint user group. So there was a lot of SharePoint stuff going on, and that's how our circles started coming together.
Yep. No, that was exciting times. And I know that, I know that IAMCP is one of those things, like these networks of partners that get together and help each other and talk about best practices, those kinds of things. Like, I love having that community aspect of things. You still pretty heavily involved in that?
Yeah. So we just had, like I said, so in SoCal, we have the HOP group, HOPP. So it's the Hall of Past Presidents. And so the Hall of Past Presidents, which I think there's like 8 or 9 of us now, which is pretty crazy to think about. Like every couple of years, like there's succession planning, and everybody has, their own specialty that they bring to the table. But we just had our HOP meeting a couple of days ago, and it's always great to reconnect with them. And the idea of the Hall of Past Presidents is to help the current president and any challenges or questions that they have. And Brian Anuma is running the SoCal chapter and doing a fantastic job. But he always has some great pointed questions. How do we do this? And how do we get membership up? And how do we get better value back? But what I love about the organization, it is Microsoft partners building something for Microsoft partners, right? So when you think about like whether you're in a SharePoint user group, you want to be around other people who are in SharePoint. In this case, like you're a leader in a Microsoft partner organization, you want to be around other leaders so you all share the same business problem. So why not get together, partner with one another, share deals together? Because not everybody's doing SharePoint, not everybody's doing Intune, not everybody's doing virtual desktops. Go find somebody who is and go share some opportunities together.
And I have personal experience there where I actually did 2 deals with direct competitors
Yeah.
where we became friends, on the partner side. It was back when I was a chief evangelist and was driving a lot of the partner program for my former company. And with one of our competitors that came and said, "Hey, look, here's a customer where we have competing products, but they really need one of your products that doesn't compete. Can we trust each other that you won't go and try and steal away from the deal we've already done with the other pieces?" And we're like, "Of course."
Yeah.
Like I was sensitive to, I had to go find the right salesperson who could be mature and do it in the right way. But we built that level of trust, and it helped actually lead to an acquisition of my former company by that competitor.
Well,
So
that's what's beautiful about the group is that we've seen that the trust part that you're talking about, that happens over a period of time. So where I see people in IMCP where it does not work is somebody comes to a meeting and they're like, I came to a meeting or two and I didn't get anything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes years. And it's like, okay, I've been in the group, and I actually know of a case study where there's somebody who was part of the group for 2 or 3 years. And he was like, yeah, I just don't seem to get anything. And then all of a sudden something just clicked. And it's just because he had built so much trust with so many people because he was there every single month and he wasn't trying to take, he was trying to give. He was always trying to give. And then finally somebody gave back to him, and then more people gave back to him. And so it just happens organically over time. But the people who are there, we talk about it all the time, like the friendships that you gain, like there's nothing like it because you have this common bond and you've been part of a group, and then it's a volunteer thing. So nobody's getting paid for it. And then if you're doing volunteer, and then one of the founding principles we had in SoCal was about doing charity work. So, if you're out there doing charity work with other people, you really get to see how people work, right? Because they're not only are they not getting paid for our little group that we have here, but they don't even have to come do this, Thanksgiving food drive thing that we're doing, or whatever the case might be. Like these people are incredible people, and you want to partner with people like that.
How would you describe, I mean, having been in this space for a while, and even, I know you were still involved in, I mean, obviously with what you were doing with working with customers, but still with the partner ecosystem, because I'd see you drop in, you participate in a lot of different things. How much has the partner ecosystem changed? Like compared to when you got started in it to where it is today? Like not the programs, the licensing, all that kind of stuff is going to evolve and change, obviously. But how has the partner ecosystem itself changed?
I think, well, the ecosystem has gotten bigger and bigger, right? But it's also becoming more challenging in the fact that the technology, just Microsoft itself, just keeps coming out with more incredible products. The pace of change is too much for pretty much anybody. And even at Microsoft, I was working with Accenture and Avanade and IBM and TCS and Cognizant, all these big guys, but they still can't do everything.
Yeah.
And so the challenge comes in for a partner is like, a lot of partners think, oh, well, we can do it all. Well, probably not. Like if Accenture can't with 500,000 employees, what makes you think that you can, even if you have a couple hundred, right? So you've really got to understand like where your place is. And so there's a lot more partners, and there's a lot more complexity to each partner because there's different types of partners now. Now you've got partners who just specialize in these things. They just specialize in these industries. And then what becomes even challenging to Microsoft is like, you can't lump everybody together, right? You can't judge an LSP the same as you judge an SI, the same that you judge an ISV. And I know that that's where the complex problems come in with like the new partner program. Is like, okay, you've got these 6 solution designations, and everybody's got to fit into it. It's like, oh, well, but what about us? And then it's like, oh, well, training partners, we're going to give you something else. And now you got this. And it's like, yeah, but I'm an ISV and I can't get my solution designation, so I can't get my IUR. So that's continually becoming more and more of a challenge. Microsoft's trying to keep up. But the amazing thing is that partners are what really does drive the platform itself. Judson Olaf would come and tell us. So he's the executive vice president and runs all of sales. He would have this analogy of like, everybody wants like the sexy jacuzzi in the backyard, and like that's the end product. But what we do is we're the plumbing, we're the stainless steel plumbing that you have to get that. And so let's go help our partners build what we need to have at the end, and we'll just give them the stainless steel plumbing all day long. And so that's the way that you really have to think of it, is like, what is your piece of it? And that's where even groups like IAMCP and just being out there and just understanding like what the different types of partners, how you partner with others, because you need a lot of pieces as a general contractor to be able to give that sexy jacuzzi at the end.
Maybe that's is that a good way to describe what your company does? You guys are general contractors?
Well, so what we try to do, the way that I describe it, and I think that the best way I found it is it's kind of like Microsoft is, I don't want to say that they're the IRS, but they're like the IRS. Okay. So if you want to save money on your taxes, you can go to irs.gov and you can download a guide. It's about 5,500 pages of here's how you can save money on your taxes. I mean, of the actual tax code, only about 50 pages of the 5,500 is these are the taxes that you have to pay. The other 5,450 pages are, if you do this, you can save money. If you do this, you can save money. If you do this, it's a write-off, right? Mm-hmm. But who's going to go read all of that? So what you do is you go hire a CPA who knows it like the back of their hand, because that's all they do. And then they help you do all that stuff. So essentially that's what we do with the Partner Masters, is like everybody in our team. So we have 24 employees, 20 of the 24 came from Microsoft. So we know what it's like inside of Microsoft, and we know what it's like as a partner. So we know that book inside and out. And if you compare 5,500 pages of IRS to the millions of pages that are on the learn.microsoft.com, it's probably even more complex to be a Microsoft partner than it is to do taxes, right? So what we do is we say, hey, there's all these different programs. In fact, if you go to the MCI guide, the Microsoft Commerce Incentives, it's over 200 pages of different incentives that you could qualify. And that's not even all of them. That's just what's in that one program. And so how do you do that? How many partners leave that money on the table? Because literally Microsoft is investing billions. If they're investing billions into the partner channel, how much are you getting? And if it's, hey, I'm not getting much, well, probably something's wrong. And so that's where we come in and we help them. Hey, we'll help you go figure out the different programs. Well, first you've got to qualify. And then how do you qualify? You got to go get the solution designations. You got to get the specializations. You have to go actually register the deals. You have to do the proof of execution. You've got to go through the audits for your Azure specializations. And so we'll help them on the technical side, get ready. We'll help them understand the operations side of how do you associate yourself to customers. We'll help them do referrals to the field team. But the big piece that is different about what we do and what the team and I did while we were at Microsoft is PDMs. Is that at Microsoft, the PDM they're really a seller. And I think a lot of times that gets lost in where there's a lot of things and a lot of challenges the partners have, where it's like, hey, for some reason I didn't get this incentive payment, or I really tried to do this. And so then all of a sudden the PDM has to become like a gopher to, I got to go.
For folks that don't know it, PDM as well as the partner development manager, so that it's for your partners of a certain level, and you've got certain numbers you have to achieve as part of that, but you can have, there's like telesupport, or I'm not even sure how they're mapping it these days, but could have a dedicated PDM, but which means that they could have 40 of you depending on your size, or 4 of you depending on the size of your company.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of times, I mean, they're compensated on a sales plan. So their goal is to drive Microsoft sales with you. But what would happen is half or more of their time is spent on, hey, let me track down these support tickets and let me help you with these things. Right. So what's different about us is like, we don't just advise and say, hey, you should go do this and this and this. And that's essentially the role of a PDM, is say, hey, here are these programs, go associate your customers and do X, Y, and Z. The difference with what we're doing is we're actually going in and executing it for you. So we get identities within the customer accounts. You need to go do your claiming partner of record, so you get credit for all the Microsoft 365 deals that you do. And partners like, I keep trying it, but it keeps getting rejected. Well, we do thousands of them, so we'll just go in and do it. So if you think of us like when you think of a managed service provider, like that's all they do. They just work on helping people and getting stuff set up and taking support tickets. They just work in the Microsoft 365 environment. All we do, we only work with Microsoft. My son's name is Maverick Bing. Like, we're all in with Microsoft. Like, it doesn't get more in with Microsoft, right? So,
and your daughter's name is Zune, of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she was a little earlier. I wasn't as into Microsoft as I got into it a little bit later. But so the idea is this is all we do. This is all we know. We don't do anything with AWS or GCP. We know Microsoft inside and out, and we will go execute it. And this is what we do.
talking about some of the complexity of it too. It's like people don't understand. Like we would run into the cases. I own the alliance relationship with Microsoft and some other OEM companies as well. But that we would hear of a program or some other spiff or something else for partners, and we go to our PDM would be like, no idea. We go to the industry team, they're like, we have no idea either. And there's often just things that a product team, one side of the product team, like this group of features, might run something, some program for partners around something. So there's constantly things like that where, again, I love what you said that, one company, you can't do all of the things. Like it's impossible. Like
Well,
there's,
and that's the thing. You have one person. If you have a single alliance person on your team, well, usually they're not just going to be dedicated to Microsoft. They're probably going to have to do Google and Amazon and Cisco and all the other partner alliances that you have. So it's already an impossible job. But even if you said, hey, I've got one person just dedicated to Microsoft, there's no way to keep up.
right.
And so what makes it nice for us in the way that we do it as a service is, hey, I mean, we've got 24 people on our team who are keeping up with this stuff every day. We work with hundreds of partners. And it does happen where somebody pulls something like that, and maybe you find something and you're like, hey, Justin, did you hear about this new program?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to go take this to the hundreds of other partners that we have also. And it's going to work its way around, right? You may bring something to me and somebody else may bring something else to me, but now we can share the wealth with everybody else to where we can go, like we like to say, go spend Microsoft money. There's billions of dollars. Let's go spend it.
Yeah. Again, the misconception that, hey, we do it all, we do all the things, we're all Microsoft to do that. I've heard companies claim that, consulting companies. It's like, no, what do you actually, what's your bread and butter? Like, what are you actually doing? Because you don't do everything. I know partners that were SharePoint and building intranets. So does that slow down? They're now heavy, ramped up 80-90% of their business on the dynamic side, which 10 years ago, there was hardly any opportunity around the dynamic side. And so it's constantly changing. Any other common misconceptions with companies that are coming in that are looking for help, that just misconceptions that they have about the ecosystem?
Well, I think you're spot on with, whether it's technology or industry, right? Microsoft is they segment their people kind of the same way. They've got full industry teams. They've got people who specialize in each different technology. I think you have to kind of mirror that. And I do hear a lot of times where people say, not only do we try to do everything, but then they'll say, yeah, we're working with every type of customer we can. And more that you start seeing, like the really successful partners are just in retail, or they're just in government, or they're just in education. And what happens is that you find a niche. And I feel this every day too, because that's, Matt and I talked about when we started the company, like we're just going to be Microsoft, and 2 years down the road, we're probably going to look different than what we think that we would look, because we're going to figure out all this stuff. And that's what's happened. So like for us, like we've now built our first software. We've got a new portal that's out there. We make it free to partners so they can come in, and hey, we've got our own university in there where they can actually learn, hey, here's how to do all this stuff. We think some of the reporting in Partner Center could use a little bit of help. So instead of like complaining to Microsoft, we just built it. And so now you can connect all your reporting up from Partner Center into our portal. And now all the Power BI dashboards that make it relevant, where are the opportunities in my current customer base? They're all listed out for you. So we've taken those pieces, and the company is growing. The other thing that we figured out, kind of doing the same pattern, is as we started working with partners and they'd say, we're not really good with security, and we would come in and train them on security, they'd say, you know what, like we can't go build this practice like we thought, and it's much deeper than what we thought it would be. Can you guys just do it for us? And so we've heard that over and over and over. So we've actually just launched a new division of the company called the Tech Mavericks. And the Tech Mavericks is actually like, you're not going to see anything about us going to market, because we're not going to market directly to customers, but we're a white label service for the partners in our community. So if they don't do security, if they don't do AI, if they don't do Azure services, like we will come in and augment their services. And most of our team came from Microsoft Consulting Services. So they're top level talent who you can just rely on. Hey, I'm going to pass this project over. We'll get the project done, and you can still have some really good margins because these guys are worth it.
Yeah. Well, so that's a great example. My next question is kind of a good segue. So thank you for that. Into part of what is kind of core to your business is helping your customers unlock new revenue streams and move in different areas. And so is that what you just described? That's an example of you guys are creating a new practice area to help other businesses create new practice areas.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we do see this where I would say that even on this pre-sales capabilities with some of the partners, there are a lot of partners who struggle in sales and marketing, right? There are a lot of partners who are stuck in SMB because they just don't feel comfortable going upstream. They don't maybe have the enterprise sales capabilities, or they don't have some of the that they feel confident to take their services upstream. And so a lot of times it's hey, we need somebody who knows the product well enough to go talk to a 1,000-person company or a 10,000-person company. And so we can offer those types of services to them so they can get some of those bigger projects. And then if they don't feel like they can deliver it, we can deliver it for them, right? So that's kind of the idea of the services. Whether the partners understand it, if they want help in building a practice, we'll help them build a practice. The mission, like our mission, is built off of the Microsoft mission. So Microsoft's mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Our mission is to empower every Microsoft partner to achieve maximum profitability with their Microsoft partnership. So still staying directly, like we're just an add-on to what Microsoft is doing. If you need training to get you there, we'll help you with that. You need somebody to come in and deliver it, we'll help you do that. You want somebody to come help you get more funding for the Microsoft products that you have, we'll help you do that.
Yeah. How kind of another general ecosystem question, but how does Microsoft decide which partners to support more closely versus those that they kind of leave to navigate independently? I mean, I know there's numbers and then like the size of the company, the things that they go and do like that. There are also strategic partnerships that
Yep.
Microsoft has out there, but like how often, as I've worked with a number of partners that are like, yeah, but we're special and we do this other thing that nobody else does. So why won't Microsoft listen to us? I don't know if you can talk to that.
Yeah. I think I can probably share a little bit. And what I can say is, unfortunately, it's more of the opposite conversation internally at Microsoft, just because the business has gotten so big. And what I mean the opposite, it's not talking about like how do we add more partners to our portfolio. Unfortunately, it's how do we drop more so we can focus on these other partners. And so I was sharing earlier, like when I was in the SMB org, I had 4,000 partners in my territory. And not that I was managing them, right? But at least they had a phone number, an email address. They had somebody they could come call on. Across the entire country, there were about 50,000 partners in SMB that we were working with. My last year at Microsoft, so 2012, we covered 500 as an entire US team. So, and then that number is continuing to shrink, even though Microsoft is not just US, it's now Microsoft Americas. The number is continuing to go down and down and down because those partners are bigger and they take more resources. Microsoft has plenty of money and they have plenty of technical resources and white papers and different things that you can use and programs. They're putting all these things in place, but they can't go hire 5,000 people to support the partner organization. It just won't work. The market just won't allow it. So what has to happen is, hey, if these partners are the strategic partners and Microsoft has to associate 10 people in their team to go help that partner, that's what they have to do. But it's going to be at the detriment of all these other partners who maybe they're doing tens of millions of dollars of Microsoft consumption. And a lot of partners feel like, hey, if I'm doing $10 million, you should manage me. Unfortunately, it doesn't just work that way. But I will say, what Microsoft does look at is like they're looking for growth. So look, you've got to be a certain revenue size, but then they want to see you grow. No matter if you're doing $1 million a year or you're doing $10 billion a year, they want to see 40-50% growth. And if you can have that 40 or 50% growth, it's harder and harder as your numbers get bigger, but they've got to see the growth numbers. You have to grow faster than Microsoft. So if Azure's growing at 29% or 30%, that means you have to be growing faster than what the market is. So you can show that you're gaining market share. Microsoft wants to make that investment. But the big thing that I continue to hear from Microsoft is that the partners that they want to invest in are the partners who are sharing referrals with them. So a lot of times people think, oh, well, I want to co-sell with Microsoft. That means Microsoft's going to bring me all these leads. And it just doesn't work that way. Right. So what happens is like you have to share within the portal, hey, I've got these customers and this one's right. I really need you to come in and help. And we need Microsoft presence with this customer. Or this one's competitive with AWS or Salesforce or whatever it might be. Let's collaborate on this one so we can bring it home together. That's co-selling with Microsoft. And so it's not just, hey, I got all my stuff up in the marketplace and I'm just going to wait for Microsoft. It doesn't work that way. You've got to come to the table and come to the table frequently. And as you do that, then Microsoft's going to want to make more investment in getting stuff back to you. But they're looking for those partners who are going to continually give.
I don't want to get down into the weeds of it. Just something that just kind of like, oh yeah, I should have. Justin probably has something to say about this topic, but I know that a lot of partners that have felt like, well, I've gone and I've put opportunities up into the partner center and shared this information, things they're working on, and in some cases where Microsoft is sellers have gone in and like underbid us, or that they've scuttled a deal. And so there's some apprehension about putting every single deal in there. And I know that a couple of partners that I've worked with where we were very careful of, here are the opportunities where we need to have a true co-sell. We need Microsoft involved for us to close the business. Like we can't do it without Microsoft playing a role in it. And we would focus on those. So we'd have the industry teams reaching out saying, hey, so what are the top deals you go, let's do some account mapping and things around this. Like we would not give them the whole list. We're like, these are going through, we don't want any extra hands in there to screw this up.
Right.
Here's where we need Microsoft's help. And we would provide that list to them. And I know your thoughts around that, because I had one where we did a blind bid as a consulting company, and we didn't know that we were competing against Microsoft Consulting, and we won. And then Microsoft, some executive gave us a call saying, "What the hell? Like you caused us to lose." We're like, "What are you talking about?" Again, this down in the weeds around that. But what are your thoughts about answering the concerns of partners of sharing a lot of this deal in with Microsoft in some areas where other divisions of Microsoft could be competing with that partner?
Yeah. So I've heard other partners share other similar concerns, and I get it. I mean, I would say that first, it is a termination type of offense if somebody were to take a deal that you give them and then they go give it to another partner. Like that shouldn't happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but it should not happen. And Microsoft has guardrails in place to try to protect for that. But the thing with co-selling is really, when it gets to an RFP process, Microsoft also has to be very they can't get involved actually in a lot of RFPs, and Microsoft Consulting Services out there bidding on their own, and you get into the large enterprise space. Kind of below the strategic enterprise, you're not going to play against them. But if like TCS is bidding against Accenture, or there's two partners, or maybe it's an SMC deal where there's a bid, Microsoft cannot get involved in an RFP where the software is not part of the conversation. Typically, the customer will choose, okay, our platform is Microsoft. Now the integration partners are going to have to bid on this. So when that happens, the account teams cannot get involved. Now, there are teams at Microsoft who can work with you, and then they put firewalls in place between the teams that are working with different partners to get the information that they need for, hey, how what do you guys do with this? And it's like, I need somebody from Microsoft to answer this question. So Microsoft will give you some resources. They're kind of secret resources and they're hard to get a hold of, but if you know where they're at, you can go find them. But to your point earlier, like when we look at like the MSIM stages, which Microsoft calls the Microsoft Customer Engagement Methodology, like there's like 5 stages in the process, and really like the first stage is listen and consult, and it's really like, okay, let me hear when somebody says a trigger word to where it's like, oh, this is a Dynamics opportunity, or this is they're thinking about moving from Google to Microsoft. Okay, great. Then like at that point, that's when you're going to bring in a Microsoft seller, so you can be in there together in the very beginning to actually make the deal come real, right? If you wait to the point, and this works on both sides, both on the partner side and the Microsoft side, if you wait to the point where it's like, okay, we've already got all the way down to negotiation, and now we want to come together to kind of co-sell this thing, like it's pointless. I mean, really, when you think about it, like, okay, we're already at this point, like you should have proven all the value up front leading up to this, and that's where everybody should have come together. So you've got to work on, okay, how do we get together and co-selling really at the beginning of stage 2, where we call it inspire and design. So at the inspire and design, we're building all that value. So when it comes down to okay, we got to sign off on this thing, that we built 2-3x times value because we did it with Microsoft and not just on our own, and Microsoft was doing something on their own.
Yeah. What would you say your percentage of your current clients are like already doing channel sales? They're well versed in that, but they're looking to scale or to hyper grow, and they come to you for that, versus companies that are purely direct, and they know to grow, especially moving out of the SMB, that they need to move toward an indirect model and start working with partners. What percentage would you say of your business is those two?
I mean, I would say like the ISVs that we work with, they're all trying to build a channel, right? And that's one of the things that they do come to us for. First, how do we get our solution into the marketplace? How do we make it transactable? How do we get to IP co-sell? How do we get the Microsoft field sellers compensated? How do we get them interacting with our products? So, and then how do we do multi-party private offers, and how do we do CSP private offers so we can go build those channels? So definitely on the ISV side, 100%. They're all looking for how can you help us build a channel?
And I know that a lot of them, because I primarily work with ISVs, they struggle with tempering like what they do in the direct to not, encroach upon their indirect. And there's some that make the decision, say we're going to be 100% partner moving, we're going to get out of the direct sales business,
Yep.
and others that do that balance, and it's a back and forth, which is a problem area. It's a struggle for companies.
Yeah, I agree. On the services side, I mean, I think it's more like almost like an IMCP type thing, where it's like, hey, if I can find some partners who can fill some of these gaps, then great. But they're not necessarily looking to build a channel as much on the SI, MSP, CSP type side. But what I will say though is I am seeing more of a bridging where ISVs are becoming more of a service partner, and services partners are becoming more ISVs, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's trying to figure out like what's the software that I can build if I'm going to go into retail. What's some retail type of software that I can build that's either going to help my services, or I can give some IP back to this community so I can get more in there. Where the ISVs are saying, I think we can deliver some services behind this, or there's an opportunity for us to deliver these services and try to make it easier for the services partners who are reselling, that we can just go in and do it for them. So you're starting to see these worlds come together, which is creating more complexity.
Yeah. What kind of internal business changes do you see? Are there like common thread or themes of businesses where they have to modify their sales comp models, their other go to market kind of shifts, other things that are necessary to be successful in the partner ecosystem? Like, do you see like kind of common themes when you're working with partners of where they're weak, what they need to do to strengthen their channel strategies?
I mean, with the Microsoft partnership specifically, I would say that it is like overwhelmingly almost 100%. They just don't know what they don't know. So it's one of those things, like we always start with a partner center assessment, and then we go through it. We go through their partner center with a fine tooth comb to show them, hey, you qualify for this program, you qualify for this program, you qualify for this program. Like, you had the opportunity to go claim $500,000 for this, and $12 million for this, but because you didn't know, you didn't do it. And, or even like a lot of partners qualify for co-op dollars and they don't even know it. And in some cases, we've even run into where partners have $250,000 every half. They didn't even know it was sitting there. It's like, all you have to do is go claim it and they will pay it to you. But when you don't claim it, they just keep it as extra profit. So let's make sure that, that's the number one thing is it's not that people don't have the business sense and they don't know, how to grow the business or how to go deliver projects. It's just, they don't know the programs that are there. Like you said, there's hundreds of them and it's hard to keep up with them. And when somebody starts pointing them out, once you know that it's there, then we can say, okay, well, let's go execute. And if you want to go do it yourself, fantastic. Like you can go, or if you want us to train you how to do it, we can train you. Or the easy button is just tell us and we'll go do it for you. And then it's just as a service and we'll just keep doing it every month.
I guess that's kind of my next question around that was that, like, why, I don't know if Microsoft is doing anything to make that easier. There's a lot of other programs like the consumer model, or I'm just thinking of like in YouTube for content creators, and you get to a certain point where they notify you when you've achieved the numbers to then be eligible for monetization of your content, for example. And so there's nothing additional that you need to do there. There's a lot of other steps to, of course, better promote the content things out there. But similarly, there's nothing like no green light comes on and says, "Oh, you're now eligible for this," and then here's this next piece. Like, you have to go and do that work. Is that, again, there's definitely an opportunity whenever
Sure.
there's a problem like that, which is partially why you created your company.
Right. So on the managed partner side, when you do have a partner development manager or a PDM, like that's their role. Like, hey, you guys qualify for this, or we got you into this program so we can go do some more Copilot things and get you some funding on those things. But the thing that when we first started the company, we wanted to make everybody aware of is that there are all of these programs, all of these incentives that are available, literally billions of dollars that Microsoft puts in the market. You don't have to be a managed partner to get them. And that's the misconception is people think, oh, well, I've got to get to be a managed partner before I qualify for all this. And that's not true. You just have to know where the programs are, right? And Microsoft's not out there publishing all the rules of the game. right? They just put the money out there, and like there is a rule book. I mean, it is the MCI incentives guide, and you can go read it. And if you know exactly what it's talking about, but what happens is there's complexity when you try to do something, and then you can't call somebody and find out like, why was my claim rejected?
Yeah.
You just have to know. You have to do it enough times and figure it out and say, okay, well, I did this enough times, and I know when they say that there's no signature, it means that you cannot have a wet signature. It must be a digital signature. Well, how are you going to know that unless you've done 1,000 of them, right? So those are the little things where just experience comes into play. And again, if you have one person trying to do it and they're pulling their hair out, it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. But the main thing is you don't have to be a managed partner. You just have to know the rules of the game. You have to know where the programs are. You have to know how to submit for them. You have to know how to get through all the claiming process. And then the money starts coming in.
I mean, you made the statement earlier. You talked about it. We saw this when the partner ecosystem changes that were made. Was it like 4.5 years ago now? When the most recent changes, is it that far back? I know time is not as meaningful as it was pre-pandemic. Dates like we just saw each other. That Christian, that was 12 years ago. But so one of the things that Microsoft is doing, they're kind of making it more difficult to get the solution partner status. And so there's different criteria there. So fewer companies have the various designations that are out there. It doesn't mean that they're not experts in that. It could be like, especially in the SMB space, you could have a small specialized partner that doesn't have the personnel to go get the certifications to get the gold, whatever it is in that category. Doesn't mean that they may still have people that are highly decorated in the certification world. They could be MVPs and RDs and longtime ecosystem members around that. But they've made it more difficult, as you said, to focus on the bigger partners that are out there. And so there's a lot of smaller partners that took that as a very negative, like, well, we no longer have these designations. It's going to be more difficult for us to kind of have our foot in the door with deals, because there are customers that are out there like, hey, I see this partner that has this gold certification. You're a silver in this, therefore they have more expertise, when that might just have more to do with the size of the partner, not the depth of expertise. So I know, how do you explain that? I mean, you kind of just did. You were talking about, hey, you've got to go after. There's still plenty of ways to get the money to go build your business without having those.
No. So you still have to have those. So what I was saying is you don't have to be a managed partner, but having solution designations and specializations are the keys to the kingdom. And so this is where understanding the rules of the game really comes into play. So as an example, like if we take modern work, and I know you're big in the modern workspace, right? Yep. So in modern work, there's basically 3 different categories. So there's net customer ads, there's certifications, and then there's customer usage. So in the net customer ads and customer usage, there's 2 ways that you can get points. You can sell CSP, or you can do CPOR claims, a claiming partner of record. Mm-hmm. So if it's an enterprise customer, the only thing you can do is do a claiming partner of record. But what most partners don't know is if it's CSP, you can still do claiming partner of record. Well, if you do claiming partner of record, you get twice as many points as if you sell CSP. So the way that you can get to the points much faster, do your CPOR claims. They're not as easy as just transacting the business, but if you do that, it's faster. And then when you look at the cert side, a lot of times people look at the list and they see, oh my gosh, there's 100 different certifications that I have to take here. No, you just need one. And one of those, like for intermediate, like you can do the MS 900. So that's the 900 exams are like the entry exams, right? So every person on my team has passed that exam. Not everybody on my team is technical. Like your team, if your team's technical, you should be able to get an MS 900. And then when you go to the advanced cert, you start looking at some of those, and you see like the modern work expert or the Microsoft 365 expert. That's pretty intense. Yeah. But if you look deeper, there's one that says it's a Teams meeting assessment. Well, an assessment is an online quiz. You can take as many times as you want. It's 30 questions. If you fail it, just take it again. If you fail it, take it again. Right. And as long as you have one person takes an MS 900 and you have one person that does a Teams assessment, you can do 3 or 4 CPOR claims. You can have that modern work solution to it. So it's not hard, but it's not hard because I know the rules of the game. If you're reading it for the first time, you don't know all these things that Microsoft's talking about. It's like, oh, I could never get this. Getting silver and gold was so much easier. Where reality is, if you know the rules of the game, like anybody who comes to us and they want to get a modern work, within 60 days, we can get them a modern work. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. I just think that there's I was going to say there's an opportunity for Microsoft to go to do a better job of onboarding partners into all of that. But then again, that's what partners to Microsoft are doing, like your company, to
Yeah.
help companies do that.
Well, that's the opportunity. I was just talking to some of the folks on my team, and we were sharing like you were former Microsoft, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think I don't think we're ever going to hear anybody at Microsoft say this, but I think when you work within the walls of Microsoft, like you learn a lot, right? The reason that I'm able to do what I do and we're able to do what we do is because of what we learned from Microsoft. I feel like, and in fact, even my old VP Jim Lee, he even texted me over the weekend. He said, the best thing that ever happened was that you left Microsoft. It's like it's a really weird compliment, but it's true. Like all of us who left Microsoft, we're actually creating a better ecosystem. We're creating more for Microsoft being on the outside than what we could even do on the inside.
Yeah.
So that's the opportunity. Like you said, like there is an opportunity for Microsoft. But if Microsoft does it, like they're also going to create more of a problem for themselves that they can't solve. So if you go tell partners, hey, if you go do these easy steps, you can go qualify for all these back-end rebates and all these pre-sales programs. Well, then you're going to have more people are going to call you because you're doing all these other things. But if you let somebody like the partner masters come create a business, and that's what we do, if they create it, fantastic. Like Microsoft's willing to invest in partners who are investing in them. So we can be that delivery arm, but Microsoft can't do it themselves.
Right.
And so that's the other part that's really exciting for us is like when we first started, everybody was saying, "Oh, you guys are competing with the Global Partner Solutions team, the GPS team." No, we're actually building something to complement them. So probably half of our partners now are managed partners. We started off working with the non-managed partners because we wanted to show them you don't have to be managed. But then what started happening is we got a few of the managed partners who wanted to use us for execution, and their numbers started skyrocketing. So, and in fact, we started doing some analysis with the Microsoft team, and they saw not necessarily us, but they saw average Microsoft partners growing about 40% year-over-year growth for Azure. The average managed partner who also uses TPM services grows at 70% year-over-year on Azure. So they're like, obviously, you guys are helping a tremendous amount. And so, but again, it's just the other part of it, like our services aren't free. And if you're willing to put skin in the game, like you're probably going to get a lot out of it. And so that's what's happening. Like a lot of this work is on behalf of the partners and the hard work that they do. My team's adding a lot of valuable insight, a lot of valuable execution, but it works on both sides. So if partners are willing to put it in, our team's willing to put it in, like you're going to see some massive growth from those partners.
Yeah. Well, and another area that I want to talk about is because I've spent a portion of my career working with companies that are outside of the US and in Europe, especially, that is very partner centric. They work that way. And they think, well, we'll just take this model and we'll move our business over and operate within the US. And they struggle.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, as much as cultural issues and the way that the partner model works in Europe can be very different than over in the US. What are your thoughts on that? On internationals trying to then come over in the Microsoft ecosystem and just do what they're doing over in their home countries in the US?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It is a complex shift. We see it from Europe, we see it from Asia, we see it from Australia, New Zealand. Partners do see the opportunity and they do think, okay, well, we can go take it. And the ones that I see succeed are the ones we were talking about earlier, where they have very niche offerings. They're going after a specific industry. They've got specific IP that are going to help them come in. The challenge comes in if you're net new, like, okay, it's almost like you're starting over, like you're a brand new business. Like you've got to build the relationships. Now, what's nice is that if you've built where you've got your solution designation, specialization, you qualify for the funding. When you start to share some of those referrals with the Microsoft team, hey, we've already got this stuff. We already qualify for these programs, and you're bringing those forward to make their job easy. But what happens a lot of times, we see them come over and it's like, oh, I'm using LinkedIn as a tool to go find the account teams that work on these things. And then you call them and say, hey, Christian, I see you're the account executive for Wells Fargo. Like, let's work together and go win this thing. It's like, hey, I got 12 other partners who are already in the account. Like that's not how it works here. And I do hear in some other parts of the world, like it is that easy because there's not 125,000 partners in Germany, right? There's a much smaller subset, and then for each technology, it's going to be even smaller than that. So a lot of partners don't understand that there are a lot of partners and partners that do almost everything here. So you are going to have to compete, and when you have to compete, and especially if you're going to be working with the Microsoft team, you have to make their job easy. You got to give them some security and knowing that, okay, I'm working with the best of the best partner who's going to come in and do some great work for this customer. and I'm not going to have to go do a bunch of ESIF claims, and I'm not going to have to go. ESIF is like the money that Microsoft gets to apply to a partner to help a customer. But if you can come to the table and say, we already qualify for all the partner-led funding, you don't have to do a thing, but I can get $100,000 for them to move from AWS to Azure.
Yeah.
Great. They're going to love working with you.
I used to, when I especially first left Microsoft, and I would, as I started working with partners, and I used to always just try to simplify. I said, look, the secret to working with Microsoft, the person, like a one-on-one with the person that you're talking to, is, and because I hear going to the Microsoft partner conference, which then became so that it became
WPC to Inspire
to Inspire. That's right, Inspire. So I forget. So we've not had it in July for a couple of years, but with Inspire. But I'd hear these partners talk about, and I would sit as I did business in a bunch of global regions and go over to the the hangout areas of the regional areas out in the expo hall. And talk to some of the businesses, and they'd say this like, well, we're huge in our country. We're going to do this. We're going to move things over. And I'm trying to get Microsoft's attention, and my Microsoft person, they're not very responsive to this. I said, something, one of the things that take away from being employees is the model of, if you need my help, don't come to me telling me everything that you need. So if I'm a company approaching your Microsoft, Justin, I'm not going to come to you and say, hey, Justin, here's what I need. My business needs this, and it'll help we're a Microsoft partner. We do all these things, but I need this and this. And can you help me with like some leads around this opportunities, this area? You're just like, look, I've got 100 of you.
Yeah.
Like asking this thing. But if you approach the Microsoft person, if I said to you like, hey, Justin, I'm aware that like you're being measured like to hit your bonus for your year, like these are the 3 things. I can help you exceed on 2 of your 3 things through this. And here's what I have. Here's what I could do to help you hit your numbers.
Yeah.
You're going to have a much better response from us. Like, help me to achieve or exceed my numbers. I'm going to listen to what you have to say there and start the conversation there. It needs to be very much focused. You have to remember the size of every other company in the world in relation to the size of Microsoft, and approach it that way. I mean, there's nothing dishonest. It's not like a sneaky trick to get in there and do that. It's actually redirecting those partners, when I was giving this advice, to approach it in the right way where they're going to get the right response back out.
Yeah.
Of course, if the person says, well, yes, tell me how I can exceed, it's like, well, it's going to be something that's then going to benefit your business. That's why you're there having the conversation. You don't need to hammer them over the head of, hey, we want to partner with Microsoft to close this other business.
Yeah.
That's a given. Let's get to the now hitting your numbers.
Yeah. I mean, you have to remember, like every Microsoft seller has a scorecard, and some of those items on the scorecard are red for everybody. I mean, it's March, April, right? It's like everybody's going to have, okay, I've got these things that I really have to hit. I've got 3 months to go get these numbers. Well, find out what those things are. And if you find out what those things are, and then you can come back to them and say, hey, it looks like you're going to miss your team's phone number. So I'm going to go build this team's phone webinar, and I'm going to invite all of my customers. I would love to invite your customers to it as well. And if we find some opportunities, I already qualify for some pre-sales funding for $20,000 pilots for Teams Phone. Can we work together? Would you like to do some of these things where I can help you hit this scorecard metric? They're going to love working with you, right? Instead of saying, hey, like, we're a Teams Phone partner. I just want to get some ways that we can work on your accounts. Like, bring something to the table.
Yeah. Microsoft also focuses very heavily on a lot of the activities, the partner conversations were happening with the industry teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much do you talk to your partners about specifically around specific verticals or the industries of having your elevator pitch ready, the differences? If you're going after 3 or 4 target verticals, catering your message for each one of those, how important is that when working with Microsoft in those industry teams?
Yeah, no, it's extremely important for both industry and technology. So when you look at the industry, if you're going to go talk to the retail team, they don't care how many hospitals you've worked with, right? So we always coach everybody, like, create your superpower slide. And it's not like one superpower slide that says, okay, we do all of these things across all these different industries, all these different size customers. If you're going to go talk to the enterprise team for healthcare, everything you put on there, we've driven this much revenue in healthcare. We've driven these many seats of Microsoft 365 in healthcare. Here are our top 5 customers in healthcare. Here are the 5 customers that are on your list that we think that we've got a great solution for that we'd love to co-sell with you on in these accounts. So if you're talking to somebody in healthcare, great, that's your superpower slide. If you're working with somebody in retail, you need to have a whole different slide and never talk about anything. It's like you're a whole different company, right?
Yeah.
And then the same side on the technical side. So if you're working with a solution sales professional or an SSP or a technical sales professional, a TSP, they're usually, hey, I'm modern work. But you don't want to go and talk to a modern work person with everything you've done on Azure. You don't want to go talk to an AI person about everything you've done on infrastructure. Like, you've got to have your superpower slide that speaks to the person you're speaking to. And that's going to come across really well when they know that you understand what their role is and what their targets are.
Isn't that fun? That just seems so obvious. Like, whether you're tailoring a resume for companies that you're applying for, or you are, creating an email campaign out to, like, the personalization. Of course, it's also true within going in the partner world. You're not going to approach customers that way. It's going to be the exact same. Like, you want to tailor it for the vertical, for the technology, for the solution area, for each of those, so that I get it. It speaks to what I'm doing, what I'm focused on, my numbers, my metrics. That just seems obvious.
Yeah, you'd think
And
so.
we both know it's not, because
It's
we both
not.
work with partners that, right.
And the deeper you can go, the better, right? Because it's like, if you take financial services is a great example, where financial services includes banking, insurance, and capital markets. But if you go talk to banks about everything you've done for insurance, they don't care, right? You go talk to the banking team at Microsoft about insurance. They're all part of the same FSI team, but it doesn't matter to them. So again, like, the deeper you can go, and even in banking, if you're doing like regional banks, that's much different than doing, large banks, right? So, like, the deeper you can go with the concentrated content, depending upon who you're talking to, you're going to do well with it.
Hey, another question on international companies coming in, and I know that, like, to get in and talk about, issues like data residency and things that are happening, like, there's, I think, if you want to do business in the US, being able to say, like, look, we support globally and we'll work out of these Microsoft data centers, your data, like, all that kind of stuff. That, again, to me seems like a pretty standard thing. If you want to be a global service provider, ISV, whatever it is, then there are those aspects of, how are we serving that? Do you think it's important for international companies to have a local entity, to have a local presence over in the US, to be able to grow their business over here, or can they do it virtually?
Yeah, I don't think I know of a case study where they did it virtually and succeeded. I mean, everything that I can think of, at least for right now, without really giving deep thought, everyone has had a local presence that was successful in this. And it's one of the same reasons, like, if you're going to be a cloud solution provider partner, CSP, or you're selling CSP licensing to customers, you have to have a local office to be able to even sell. Like, even here in the US, if I have a customer, and I do have customers in Canada, I can't sell them licenses. I have to have an office in Canada and prove that I have an office in Canada to even be able to sell licensing in Canada. I mean, there's more things, taxes and all that stuff. But I think that's also trying to prove the point to partners. Like, you do need to have a local presence. And then it's also like, when we have the conversations, like, if Microsoft wants to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more, like, you have to have every different type of person from every walk of life. Well, that means that you need to have people from the different cultures to be able to sell well within that culture. So if you want to have a good presence here in the US, there are cultural differences. Doesn't matter if you're from Germany, UK, Australia, India, Pakistan. It doesn't matter where you come from. There will be cultural differences. The easiest thing when you're selling to US is having US people sell to US. I mean, that's just how it works.
Yeah, that's just another thing. Again, having worked with, a dozen different international companies that want to move over here, and is explaining that, and I get the want to dip your toes into the water and kind of go and see, and then to get frustrated that it just doesn't work. But the partner ecosystem is just different
Yeah.
in the US, and I mean, a lot of that bleeds over into Canada, and there's other rules and things as you just explained in place, but you can't treat it the same and say, hey, we're going to rinse and repeat over in the US market. It just, I've not seen it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Well, I wanted to get a kind of final area here, a little bit more about your company. Do you still see gaps? Are there areas that can become gotchas for partners? Things that Microsoft, like you think, needs to improve on with their channel strategy?
I think it's an evolving partnership from both the Microsoft side, and I think there's a lot more that partners can give back with their partner relationship as well. I think I wish that Microsoft could open up and support more partners, but I think we all know like they just can't put those bodies in place. That's why I love the opportunity that we have to partner with them, and we consider Microsoft our most strategic partner, where like we can offer this service on behalf. Where I mean, there's the world of AI is changing everything. Microsoft just recently announced their quantum chip. That's going to change everything even more. So when you think about AI and then you think about AI and quantum together, like the next 5-10 years are going to be far different than anything that we could have ever imagined. So I think the opportunity in technology is going to be massive, but do we know what that is yet? I don't think we even have a clue.
You know what's funny is that like I've been around long enough. I was trying to raise money for my software company in the late '90s, where the .com area suddenly everybody was putting .com in the end of a name and out, and we're getting multi-million dollars in funding. And we were a software company that had a couple customers that were in beta and like physical solution, and we just struggled with that beyond seed, and that luckily found a buyer, sold the company, but. If you're not claiming to be involved with AI somewhere, is it more difficult? Do you have to drink from the AI trough and be a true believer to be able to be successful in the partner ecosystem to get Microsoft's attention?
I think so. I honestly think so. I mean, Microsoft even added AI to the partner name with the new partner program. So if I think that the challenge and where partners are at, it's almost like in the very beginning of cloud, back in the BPOS days, the Business Productivity Online
That
Suite.
was my team. Yep.
Yeah, before it was Office 365. Like everybody back then was like, well, is everybody going to switch over? It's like, yeah, they are. They are. You better get on board now. And not everybody did. I still run into rooms where people are like, see, there's still people who aren't in the cloud. That's why I still hang out here. And it's like,
Jeff Teeper said that he didn't think that he really saw that the move had been made. It was like 2016, 2017.
Yeah. I mean, it took a little while, but now a lot of people are there. But now the day and age, that the challenge right now is like customers are trying to go all in before they get a small win, and so you've got to help guide customers to, hey, let's start with a very very small or brand new data set with AI, and then we can branch out. You can't just say, hey, let's just let AI go loose in your current environment, and it's going to get confused, and just like any of us would if we went into a large company with all this data around us, like how are we going to figure this thing out? It's going to take a while. But if you just start small and you grow it, like you can get some nice small wins, and those small wins are going to turn into bigger wins and bigger wins and bigger wins. But I think what I see is there's a lot of partners out there who are trying to say, oh yeah, well, let's just go get the whole thing. And then they're really struggling. And so if we can figure this out as a community, and how do we go out there and how do we create these small things? Because look, even if you got a customer to go all in, everything's going to change next month anyway. Right. So like you can't keep up with the pace of change. So let's do small things so you can also pivot, because there may be something where like you may be working on an open AI service, and then maybe it's like 4.0, and next thing you know, IO is better, and you've got to be able to pivot to different solutions, whatever it might be. But you've got to give yourself that flexibility, but do it in small chunks. And I think we'll all be better together.
Well, maybe you've partially answered this question, but if you're a brand new Microsoft partner, new consulting company, an SI that's coming on in a region, you've had some success, you've moved, maybe even, and I've seen plenty of partners that were big over in the Google space, and they've now moved over into more of the collaboration side of Microsoft 365. What's the best way to get traction and grow quickly? So brand new partner on the scene.
The main thing that I see is just go to market, like really just hit the streets as hard as you can. What's really interesting is like when you go to one of the partner conferences or even Ignite, and anywhere that has an expo hall, right? If you go up and down, and you've been in the ISV community for a long time too, you go up and down the halls and you look at all the products that are out there, and then you stop and think, well, how do they have that? Because Microsoft does that too.
Yeah.
And when you start to think about all the competitive products that are out in the market, why do they succeed? Because they have somebody who's really focused on it and they're really driving it. So my point here is like, it really doesn't matter. Like you could go create an email server if you wanted to. Yeah, Exchange dominates the market, but if you hit the streets hard enough, you're going to make enough market share for yourself to get in. So if you're coming brand new into the market, I don't care what your product or service is, just go hit it as hard as you possibly can. And you're going to make a business for yourself.
You know, the 10 years in a row before the pandemic and, you know, shut down the Inspire conference, the partner conference, you know, I attended that thing, loved that. That was like my event. That was like my people there. But I tell you, I rarely went to what did the keynotes, but I rarely went to a session unless it was a very specific topic. And I would spend my entire time doing exactly that in the expo hall. Like I'd see dozens of companies that I knew the brands, I knew what they did, and a lot of other ones to go and say, what do you do? What's different? I would just ask those questions like, how is that any different from what I know this other company does that? What's unique about it? And it's again a great way to make potential partner relationships, to understand maybe the scope of the opportunity is bigger or different than what you thought it was, and just better understand how other partners are playing. It's like competitive research,
Yeah.
competitive analysis. You know, like you need to constantly do that. Say, how are other companies pivoting? What are they doing? Why are they doing that? Should we be doing that? Or did we already think that and say, no, we're not doing it? Here's why. And having those discussions. You can't just sit on your hands and expect things not to change,
Yeah.
especially if things are going well. Like it can turn quickly.
Yeah. And the nice thing is like, look, you can go to the big dogs that are out there, but they don't move very fast. But if you find somebody else who has a competitive solution, it's like, how do you compete? Well, one way we compete is because we're small and nimble. And if you need a feature change, we can get that done in a couple of days. If you go to them, you're going to have to wait a year.
I, kind of a final question here, Justin. It's like, what when you think about, you know, what skills, what roles do companies need to have to really build and maintain an effective partner engagement strategy?
It's a lot. When I had a partner who asked me, "Hey, can you start building like a job description for somebody who'd be really successful for this?" And it ended up being like 3 pages long. But there's so much stuff. I mean, you have to understand the incentives. You have to understand, hey, how do I associate myself with the different customers? I have to understand how to build a relationship with the thousands of Microsoft sellers that are out there. I have to understand how to submit referrals and how to do these things. I have to understand all the solution designations and how they change. Like the SMB solution designations just came out. So how does that differ from the enterprise? And now I qualify for different stuff. So you got to be able to keep all these pieces together. So and then on the technical side, like it is good to know, like at least from a high level, what are the different SKUs that are available to customers? What's the difference in a business premium SKU and an E5 SKU? What are some of the product differences on the Azure side? What are the different main workloads? So it's finding, like when you start thinking about it, to find somebody who's going to be really successful, it's a unicorn. They've got to be semi-technical. They've got to have personality to where they can engage with people. They have to know all the different incentive programs. They have to know all these things. So it is a challenge if you said, hey, it's one person, but that's why we're trying to create it to where it's as a service. So we can still, put this up on a silver platter for partners and say, hey, yeah, I mean, you don't need one person doing 40 hours a week. You need a small team who can collaborate and get you everything you need in a small amount of time.
Right.
Because time is money, right? So you don't have to invest 40 hours yourself into this or 40 hours on your own team. You just need somebody who knows how to do it. Because if you know, and that's the same in anything tech. If I bring the knowledge to the table and I can do something in 30 minutes, it takes somebody else 3 hours. Like I saved you time, and
Right.
it's going to cost you more per hour, but it's going to cost you less overall.
You know, just to add on to that too, is that, you know, in a former role in managing the alliances with Microsoft, and part of it was helping the company understands like, look, this can't all be within a single role, because there's areas in operations, there's things that need to be owned in sales. Like otherwise, like I was finding myself becoming just like picked up the phone, asking the question to get an answer to something like, this is ridiculous. There needs to be ownership of different areas. So it took some development, some training, some education to, hey, this is what this means. And you're taking ownership of this in each of these different areas. that will then allow me to go and focus on this aspect of the Microsoft relationship. And yeah, it's a, having worked in this space, it's bigger than you think.
Yeah.
It's much more complex. We always joke that you have to have a PhD in licensing and everything to understand a lot of this, but it is constantly changing. That's why I love the community aspect of all of this. I'll make sure I'll put, of course, I've got contact information for Justin. I've got your LinkedIn profile, your company URL. I'll also put a link to IAMCP out there, and so people can reach out and connect with you if they've got any questions or want to get some of your help. So in fact, before all of this, I was actually telling somebody that I was talking to you today, and I will probably have a referral for you in the next couple of days for a client of mine. So,
well, thank you, Christian. It's been an honor, man. I always followed you and your career and your MVP stuff that you're doing all the time. But to be on your podcast, it truly is an honor. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to have you, and we'll be in touch soon. I'm sure. I'm down in your neck of the woods, I think later this year. So we'll have to, I always try to align the travels to be able to go to, like, if there's a get together or something else that's happening down there, but I'll have to holler and let you know when I'm in town.
Definitely. Let me know.
All right.
Thanks, Christian.
You've been listening to the CollabTalk podcast. New episodes are published weekly, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and most other podcast platforms. Thanks for listening.